Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you guys. I see you chatting it up already. Hope you're having a good Saturday, a little bit better than mine. My Saturday was busy. Before we jump in, have you ever been of the mindset that I'm going to relax on the weekend? I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to let myself just kind of process where I am. I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to work out, eat something good, spend time with family, read a good book, and just relax for the rest of Saturday. And then what ends up really happening is you get busy. You're just like panicking, your schedule is off, everything's gone wrong. That was kind of my day. Thankfully, nothing went wrong, but I ended up doing a way much more work than I anticipated. So I am looking forward to having this conversation with you guys. What happened yesterday, because I already had a topic that would have logically made sense to yesterday's topic. However, a lot of you emailed me behind the scenes, and you also posted comments in the comment box and or in my comment section. And you said, you know what, can you just do reparenting yourself? Somebody else said, yes, please do. Somebody else says, yes, we want to hear this. And so by the time I got through the comments, the emails, and the messages in the chat box, I thought, you know what, I love my channel enough, and I love you guys on it, to just go ahead and divert my conversation and talk about reparenting yourselves. But we're going to talk about this in a little bit of a different way, because I've always kind of talked about reparenting, and it's been really focused on changing the course of your mind and, coming to a place of acceptance that maybe your childhood wasn't the best, there was trauma, your parents weren't the best, and you're just trying very hard to survive. And so in order to survive, you need to change the trajectory, or change the way that your mind is processing your life. So I've talked about it in that form in the past, but in tonight's live chat, I'm going to break down what happens to us when we have traumatic situations, or there's something going on in the family dynamic that really kind of thwarts you. It makes you feel down and depressed, a little overwhelmed, and you may feel a little lost in things. How do you climb back out of that rut that some family members and really negligent and unhealthy parents can put you in? So I'm going to talk about that as, the essential core of this whole conversation. But in addition to that, I also want to give you some common issues that people tend to have when they are trying to reparent themselves and they don't know how to do it. Not knowing how to move forward past these things can really kind of hang you up. I'll use that term. It can really get you stuck. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to throw some new terms out there for you guys, just so that you'll have the knowledge and the language. And then I'm going to give you 15 ways to start this reparenting process. And these are 15 ways I've seen clinically, 15 ways that I've also worked in my own life, my personal life, in terms of growth. And research backs these things up. So we're going to get into that. Okay, guys. So let me just start by breaking some things down. Okay. When I was looking at the research on reparenting and really taking the position of I am going to live a life that is healthy, as stable as I can get it. We're all going to have issues, right? But if you can get it stable, if you can get your life stable and firm and concrete, you can kind of weather those storms a little bit better. It's one thing if your life is just chaotic, right? And then here comes a storm and it gets even more chaotic. That's like a hurricane, right? But if you can somehow, and I've done this in my own life, so I'm going to share this with you later in the chat, but if you can somehow get your life really stabilized, those storms that come at you, they may hurt, they may sting, they may sink you just for half a second, but it's easier to get out of that, right, when your life is stable. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But some of the research on reparenting yourself and developing some kind of internalized courage that puts you ahead of all the trauma you've experienced, we really have to be, according to research around this thinking and this kind of way of looking at humanity, research says that we have to be adaptable. We have to be adaptable in order to stand firm in the midst of adversity. And if you have experienced family harassment, family bullying, intimidation, trauma, or you have somehow developed complex PTSD because of family, you've been betrayed, minimized, right? You've had people in your world who's condescending and uncaring. You've come up against siblings who may not be very loving and compassionate and empathic. You may have also grown up in a household that was full of chaos, right? And you may have parents that don't seem to really care much. Or as I talked about yesterday, they can't care. You know, if you've experienced any of those things, research says that we have to be adaptable and we have to learn what that is. And we call that psychological flexibility. Get ready for the new terms, okay, guys? Psychological flexibility. Psychological flexibility really helps you change the fabric of your family. And it does this by encouraging you to change the fabric of your family by changing yourself first. Does that make sense, guys? Changing the fabric of your family by changing yourself first. I'll give you an example of this. So I'm going to give you a personal and I'll give you a professional example. So in my upbringing, my mom was very structured when it came to her children. She was young once, she partied once, she did her dating and all of that. But at a certain point in her life, and I'm going to say my mom's 30s, I must have been like 9, 10, 11. My younger brother was a newborn. My older brother was practically grown. My mom in her 30s really did have to double down when it came to me, because she put me in a public school of the neighborhood, public school that was just awful. Then she moved me to an all-girls school that was awful. I have to have some testosterone, guys. Like I'm not, I like the girls and, from time to time, but I'm really kind of like one of those people. I have to have the male energy, the prissiness and the vanity and the jealousy and the drama is too much for me. I'd rather just sit around the guys. If I'm forced to watch basketball, so be it. I'm going to do it because I don't want the drama. So I couldn't handle the all girl school. So my mom was like, you're coming out of this. And then she put me in a Christian academy and she didn't like that either. She got to a place, to make a long story short, she got to a place where she said, you know what, I'm just going to have to homeschool my daughter and I'm going to go ahead and try with my younger son. That's what she did. I was reading at a college level by the time I was 10. And then she took me the rest of the way. The way that my mom changed the fabric of our family, because I will say, my extended family and my grandfather's side and my grandmother's side of the family, there's a lot of intergenerational trauma, and we're talking bad relationships, fear of just being who we are, cultural racism and discrimination is also in the family, in extended family. There's segregation, there's lack of identity. There's follow the leader kind of mentality, boss syndrome, like a sheep. I'm just going to follow everything that you do because I'm going to follow what you do. I don't see any reason to be any difference. I'm just going to keep going this way. So my family has intergenerational trauma. The way my mom changed the fabric of our family is by pushing me forward. My younger sibling is kind of like the lost child, but he's really smart. He's the artist, the one that I always say is really good at expressing himself artistically. But it was really me that my mom pushed because I had that internal drive. And so she changed the fabric of our family by pushing me forward, by changing me, by developing me. And then over time, I took the rest of the road and I kept running and running until I couldn't run anymore. And here I am. So you can change the fabric of your family by changing yourself. My mom changed herself. That was the point. My mom changed herself so that she can empower me. And when she empowered me, I also developed and I changed a lot of things. And then I gained a lot of stability in my life as a result. So you can change the fabric of your family by changing yourself. I really do believe that you can do that. Psychological flexibility is the ability to accept, right? Accept and digest what you are, what your family is, where you are, how you think, why you think this way. Psychological flexibility says it's okay for me to embrace my thoughts about my family, which may be I don't like my family. My family hurts me and embarrasses me. My family totally has disregarded me. My family has no love and compassion for me or anybody else. My family is cold, right? If those are the thoughts that you're having, it's normal. Psychological flexibility says it's okay to embrace your thoughts. You don't have to feel, what's the word, like you're being cruel, like you're being unforgiving, like you're being the one in the family who's blaming everyone. Psychological flexibility says it's okay to embrace your thoughts and your feelings. They tend to go hand in hand. And it's okay to do that even in a negative situation, right? Psychological flexibility also is not, listen really close, guys, not getting caught in the past net of your life. Psychological flexibility is not getting caught in the past net of your life. So in other words, if in your past you feel like you were caught up in some kind of net, right? Like you were trapped and couldn't get out because of your family, because of the dynamics, because of the trauma, because of the pain, the hurt, whatever. Moving forward means not getting caught in the past net of your life. In other words, slam the door on all of that, right? And start from here, which is now, and moving forward. And that for me is the key, right? Because isn't it easy for your mind in a family that is unstable? It's so easy for the mind to just sink, right? And it sinks in denial, it sinks in fear, it sinks in uncertainty, lack of identity, all of that, right? And growing up under parents who are incapable and unhealthy or negligent, having a sibling or siblings who don't seem to connect with you, and coming from a dynamic that makes you just feel like you've lost your world or you've lost yourself in the world. It's all bad, right? But you can move forward when you don't get caught in the past net of your life. Now, there's also something known as cognitive defusion, and that's cognitive defusion. DEFUSIN, because it can sound like you're saying diffuse, like DIFFUS, but this is cognitive defusion. This is a new word. And really what this means is this, that despite toxic and unhealthy family dynamics, you are shifting your attention away from the content of your thoughts. This is how we reparent ourselves. We're shifting our attention from the content of our thoughts. This is kind of complex, so you really have to catch this. Shifting attention from the content of your thoughts to the process of your thoughts. And here's what that means. It sounds deep. It isn't. Here's what it means, guys. Cognitive defusion says, I am shifting my attention away from what I'm thinking. That is the content, right? I'm thinking about ideas. I'm thinking about beliefs. I'm thinking about what Kelly did to me last week. I'm thinking about my mom and how she raised us. I'm thinking about, and now I'm worrying that everybody thinks that I'm a nobody in the family. I keep thinking about my narcissistic father and how he's treated me. I keep getting stuck in my mind about my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my cousin, and how they treated me. I can't seem to get my mind off of what Billy over there said to me a couple of weeks ago. I'm stuck focusing on the content of my thoughts. My thoughts are taking over my ability to change myself and my peace in my world because I'm stuck in the content. Does that make sense, guys? Like your mind getting stuck in all of that chaos that's in your family, and all you can think about is what was done, who did it, why they possibly did it, when they did it, right? You can kind of get stuck there, can't you? But cognitive defusion says that a way to reparent yourself, to heal, to grow, to change, to catapult yourself into the future is by shifting your attention away from the content. I'm no longer thinking about my own thoughts and what I thought about A, B, and C. You're shifting now to the process of your thoughts. So now what you're doing with the process of your thoughts is you're really looking at how I think, right? It's kind of the form at which a person thinks. It's how am I thinking about this now? Am I thinking about this in a victim mindset? Am I thinking about this in a I have the courage to move forward mindset? Am I thinking about this in a way that says that I'm stuck for the rest of my life because of my dysfunctional family? Or am I thinking about this in a empowered mindset that says you may have done that to me, but I am now doing this with my life instead. I'm going no contact. I'm slamming the door on this and I'm going to go this way, right? Or I'm going to, flex my muscles, my intellectual knowledge, and I'm going to learn about me. I'm going to change. I'm going to transform my world, right? The way that you reparent yourself is really zoning in on how you are thinking. And that's what we mean by process. Process is processing how you are thinking, what you are thinking about, and shifting your attention to empowering yourself rather than sinking under the content of what you're thinking. And it's such a key point. Let me know if you need me to go over that again, because look, guys, even as a psychotherapist of 16 years in this career, okay, working in many capacities, I was looking at some of the research and I'm like, oh my God, let me go make a pot of coffee here and come back and highlight this, because content and process and context, you could just get so lost in that, right? At one point last night, I was mixing it up. I'm like, wait a minute, is that process? Is that content? Wait a minute. So let me know if you need me to go back over that. Okay, guys. But that really is the key. It really is, because the way that I was able to become successful and to move past many ruts growing up in this kind of society, and growing up and trying to become a female clinician that is of color, multi-race, in a predominantly white male field, right? And holding my ground, I would not have been able to do so if I got sucked into the content of my thoughts. I'm not good enough. How do I do this? I got a B- on that test. Am I really going to graduate college? Am I really going to be able to get through grad school? Right? Those were all my thoughts at the time. Am I going to have the money to pay for all of this education? I want to get this burden off my parents and my grandparents for paying my way through school. I felt like that person over there really didn't believe in me because I am not of a particular race. I feel like I don't have all the support I need in my higher education. Like, those were all the thoughts that I was having at the time. And that was the content. But when I shifted my attention to how do I need to think about this? I can either be courageous, I could either be fearful, or I could either be strong and powerful and move forward, or I could sink, with all the pressure of my negative thoughts and all the pressure that's externally out there, or I can move myself forward by changing my mind and how I'm seeing this. And the minute you shift from what you're thinking about to how you're thinking about it, things can really change for you. Now, let me give you one more thing before I go to the chat box. The inner child. the inner child. This is what you guys are dealing with. Okay, so now we're coming away from psychological flexibility. We're coming away from changing the fabric of your family by changing yourself. Now we're shifting to the reparenting part completely, because this theory of inner child is kind of interesting. You know, there's a lot on it. It's a very psychodynamic kind of a thing. It's a very trauma focused kind of a theory. And it takes a lot of reading. But here's what the inner child is in a nutshell. It really is feeling like a child in a grown-up body, you know. And I have many clients who are like this, and I have young people who are like this too. And I'm talking about my 18-year-olds, my 19-year-olds, 20, 22 to 25, and even 30. I have clients in those age ranges who feel like a grown-up in a child's body. And it really, what happens here is you experience a traumatic event. You experience a dysfunctional family. You experience a toxic family. You experience family bullying, harassment, you know, not really being able to be believed or validated in your family. That's a pain also, right? So you've got all this burden on you and all this pain in your heart and all these feelings of rejection, right? And the inner child just kind of stays on the inside and suffers, right? Especially if you're an internalizer and somebody who just kind of keeps things in. I'm not going to show you what I'm thinking or feeling. It's all in here though, you know? If you are that kind of an individual, or you've experienced all of these things, the inner child is really perceived in this way. There is a child that hides beneath that grown-up voice, that grown-up disposition, the grown-up activities that you have to do every day, right? On the inside, it's almost like the inner child has stayed stuck on the inside, and you are still that child that you used to be when you experienced that trauma, right? Some research suggests in this area that you could actually get stuck at the age at which the trauma occurred. So if you're 10 and you were violated by a sibling, you know, or you witnessed so much domestic violence, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't rest, you know, you were just afraid all the time. If you witnessed something terribly traumatic at 12, 13, 14, that inner child could very well be 13, 14, 10, 7, right? And so the psychology of the inner child is that there is a child who has been wounded by a lack of nurturing. Wounded inner child is there because of a lack of nurturing. And this is what happens to many of my young clients that I have, especially the ones who have been adopted, especially the ones that have been in foster care system, or even some of the families that I have where there's been a death or a loss or a murder of a parent. You know, that inner child is wounded. Now, for those of you who have had emotionally detached or immature parents, narcissistic parents, right? Or a parent that is very antisocial and sociopath-like, right? For you guys, that inner child is wounded by a lack of nurturing, because you're not going to get that love and affection and that understanding from a parent who is simply not checked in. You know, they're checked out. They're somewhere else. Let me see if I can pronounce his name. His name is Asagioli. I hope I have that right. Asagioli. He says that the inner child, this is the last thing before I go to the chat box. He says that the inner child that we're all trying to reparent, that's his theory, that we all have an inner child. I don't know about that, but we'll go with it for this conversation. He says, Asagioli, this concept was back in 1973, and he said this. He says that the inner child is a psychosynthesis, right? It's kind of like a fusion, if you will, of all ages. Isn't that interesting? The inner child is a psychosynthesis or a fusion. I'm saying it that way to kind of help you envision, of multiple ages or of all ages. He says, you know, the inner child is developing and growing and transforming in every age of their life. So it's not just child and you grow up into an adult and that's it. He's saying that the inner child is a psychosynthesis or a fusion of all the ages. So you're going to have all the ages right there on the inside of you to shift, to change, to, make better, grow, develop. The list goes on. He wrote the book. You may want to take this down. Let me put this in the chat box. That's what I'm going to do. Asagioli. I think it's A-S-A-G Sagioli. Asagioli. Ooh, I messed that up, guys. 1973. And his book is called oh, crap. Don't you hate that? Here it is. The Act of Will. And you can get it on Amazon. There you go. Asagioli. The Act of Will. You'll like it. I like it. It challenges me. All right, guys. I'm going to go back to the chat box. I see you guys asking me some questions, so let me get to it. And then I'm going to give you some information on common issues that you can experience just coming from a dysfunctional, toxic family. What are some of the common issues that you can experience within yourself? And how do you change, shift your mind, and get to a place that's much better? So we're going to get into that. Okay, guys, let me go to the chat box and see what you guys are saying. Is it Chilai? Okay, that better be Chilai. Okay, because I've been mispronouncing things all day since I got up this morning. Chilai. I'm going to say it that way for now. Forgive me if I said it wrong. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. I thank you for yelling that. I thank you for yelling that. I needed that tonight. I need you in my life tonight. I really do. Today was like a really hard day in terms of work. So thank you so much for that. Good to see you. Welcome to the live chat tonight. That's so sweet. Anna S. Hello. Good to see you. And thank you so much for that. I'm so happy to hear that, because what good is a YouTube channel, right? And this is not to knock anybody's YouTube channel. I'm not doing that. But what good is this neutral place that we meet if it doesn't make you walk away with a thought, motivation, happiness, community, a sense of community, right? So I feel like we're doing all the right things, right, guys? Good to see you, Anna S. Good to see you. Tanisha's Heart Garden. Hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. She says, this subject is right on time. I have learned that I have some insecure attachment styles that them stems from childhood. I think what you're saying is, I have some insecure attachment styles that stem from childhood. I would not put that past you. I wouldn't put that I wouldn't disagree with you. That's what I'm trying to say. Do you guys know what an insecure attachment is? Because some of my clients this week, they're like, Tamara, I don't know what that means. Attachment that's secure, insecure. Think of insecure attachment as being exactly what's in that sentence or that statement or that word, right? Insecure attachment. You have an insecure place that's on the inside of you that makes it hard for you to function in relationships. So in a nutshell, it's insecurities in a relationship. And if you were with me yesterday, the whole conversation about the mommy dearest kind of family member or parent, a mommy dearest mother, they can create an insecure attachment. And in some ways they can foster that because of how up and down they are with their emotions. 1 minute they're kind, next minute they're detached. Next minute, they're sweet, loving, caring mom. And then, they come back to that mean, irritable, emotionally detached kind of a mom. And so that can encourage the development of insecure attachment in children. And I really wouldn't put it past the young lady in Mommy Dearest, who was the adopted child. I'm blanking on the name of who she is. I think her name was Christina. I'm sure she went through that. A mom who just kind of cycles in her moods and in her thoughts and in her behaviors, and it gets you stuck. And then as you grow older, you develop your own relational insecurities and it becomes a disaster, right? Pink Meadows, and I always love your hearts. They're always so positive. Thank you so much for that. Fairy Girl, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. AMB, good to see you. So glad you're looking forward to this topic. AMB says, looking forward to this topic as I am on a journey of parenting, protecting, and nurturing myself after childhood trauma. My parents were never there for me. Yes. I'm so sorry to hear that. It is a dark, lonely place when you have parents, but they're not the parents you need. I used to work in really deep trauma, and it burned me out for an entire year. I had to take off. Can you believe that? Back when I was in my mid-20s, I believe it was. So I was probably like 25, 26, 27, somewhere around in there. And I worked in a lot of intensive trauma positions. So I was a therapist on a trauma unit in a hospital, a therapist on a trauma unit in a residential treatment facility, a therapist in a treatment facility that incorporated really severe physical, sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse of young people. Worked in the area of homelessness at one point, providing therapy and services to people who needed it pro bono. So during that time, my mid-20s, I found myself kind of really seeing families in a raw place, and there was a lot of, this is for you at AMB, I'm validating you here, because there was a lot of protecting themselves. There was a lot of nurturing. There was a lot of just trying to heal from the childhood trauma that had created the trauma in their lives, right? The homelessness, the substance abuse, the terrible depression, the deep-seated trauma that wasn't easy to use therapy for and medication and get over. The reparenting, the nurturing, the protecting process takes a very long time. And in fact, it may take such a long time, according to research around reparenting yourself, it may take such a long time that you're not going to see progress overnight. You're not going to see progress in the next few months. You may not see progress until 12 years later. This is what burns therapists out. And sometimes we have to walk away for a little while because you're doing all that hard work and you're in there with your clients and you're there trying to hold their hand, and something like gets in the way, they get thrown off, or the healing process is so long and extensive that you kind of die as the therapist and you say, I can't do this anymore. But for you guys, if you're in that process of protecting and nurturing and growing and changing and shifting, just know that you may not see it until 12 years later, and you finally look back and you say, wait a minute, I'm a changed person, So AMB, I understand the fight, the battle. It's going to take a little bit of time, right? But you may find that in the next 5 years, you look back and you say, you know what? I've nurtured myself. I've reparented myself and I'm doing really good. I hope that was worth something. Wisdom Seeker, hello and welcome. I'm going to steal that screen name. Good to see you. The Good Glow, good to see you. Yeah. Tamara the Tireless. Oh God, don't let my mom see that. I'm going to change this right now, because if she sees that, she's going to be like, see, you need to stop working. She tries to get me to stop working all the time. GB, good to see you. The Good Glow. GB Joe, good to see you as well. Love you as well. You're so awesome and so sweet. Mr. Ellipsis, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Kay Razy, good to see you. You're welcome. Mark Lee, good to see you. And thank you so much for that. MS, yes, you're welcome. Thank you so much for that. That's so kind. Good to see all of you. It's a tough topic, right? Yeah. Forgiveness and moving on. GB Joe, let's not talk about forgiveness. If we talk about forgiveness, okay, this is going to be a whole other hour. So we're going to talk about forgiveness on a day where I have more like internal motivation. Forgiveness and moving on is an essential piece to reparenting. I'm going to say that because if you're holding on to anger, if you're holding on to grudges, my mom can hold a grudge. I swear she started having grudges as an infant. Okay. And she still has a grudge as a soon to be 70-year-old. So she is a famous and professional grudge holder. That's really who she is. So if you're holding grudges like she is, and she has for many years, if you're holding grudges, if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're hurt, right? And you are not in some form and fashion forgiving, it trips you up. Because you can say, I want to grow. I want to have some motivation. I want to move forward. I want to shift. I want to change. I want to stretch my mind. I want to grow my intellect. You can do all of that and somehow not 100% achieve your goal because there is no forgiveness. Forgiveness, the way I like to think of forgiveness, GB Joe, is it's the process by which you let go. The process by which you let go. And you say, I'm not holding this anymore. Whether I forgive you over there or not, I still have to drop these weights because they're starting to weigh me down, you know? And once you drop those weights and let go, that really is a form of forgiveness, you know? So, GB Joe, we can go on for many years talking about this, but I will give you that much in terms of forgiveness and moving on. Think of it as I have to drop these heavy weights because it's tripping me up, you know? Axe to Edge, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Kim Math E, good to see you as well. Bossy Truthy 15, that's so cute. Buckle up. Bossy Truthy 15, good to see you as well. Tammy Nicely, good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Jessica J, welcome back tonight. So glad to see all of you. Axe to Edge says family harassment, persecution. Let's also throw in there family bullying and family intimidation. Family bullying, which I don't talk much about in a way where I give it that term. Family bullying is harassment, it's intimidation, it's spreading rumors, it's talking behind your back, it's ostracizing you, it's minimizing you, it's being condescending, it's attacking you every time you experience something and you want to share it, or attacking how you think or why you are the way that you are, right? So it really is a form of bullying within the family. So family bullying and intimidation is a part of this as well. I agree. Wisdom Seeker says, what do you think of ITP, interpersonal therapy? Ooh, yeah. I'm not going to touch that right now. I'm going to pause. Remind me at the last part of the chat, okay? I might go into that. What do I think of it? I'm not sure I have any position on it. Yeah, I don't think I have a position on it. Yeah. No, I don't have a position on it. I'll put it this way. I was never trained in it. And I have a hard time kind of wrapping my mind around the concept, you know? So I'm going to leave it there because I don't really have a position just yet on that. But I'll look at this before we go off tonight. I'm sure during conversation, I'll be able to route myself back to your question. Patrick Black 1, hello and welcome. Good to see you. And I'm sorry that you're feeling down tonight. Thank you so much for that. And I hope this conversation empowers you in some ways, because in a little bit here, I'm going to give you some ways to kind of shift your mind, your emotions, your thoughts, and reparent yourself. So we're getting there. Kate M, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Okay, let me keep moving here. Nancy R, good to see you. Welcome back. Nancy says, feel the same about the all girls thing. Yeah. I've always been, if I ever have children in this world, I am a boy mom. That's what I would be. I have never clicked with too many females. No, it's too much energy. It's tiring. You know, it's overwhelming. I feel like you have to keep your defenses up at all times. You know, boys are just not like that. You know, I was a therapist to all boys for a good 3 years and I loved it. I loved it. It burned me out, but I loved it. Very happy Mondays. Hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Good to see you. Trying to get through some of this, guys, so we can move forward. Mark Lee says, I went through a lot of things in my family that were highly toxic. Much sounds like narcissistic abuse, but I'm not sure if it was true clinical narcissism. It was bad, but some things don't add up. Yeah, I totally understand. I totally understand. You may never figure out what it exactly was. You just know that it has impacted you in a negative way. Excuse me, guys. Right? You just know that it has impacted you in some way. And it may stay with you for the rest of your life, you know? But if you try some of the things that I'm going to give you a little bit later, you might be able to shift a little bit easier. And again, these are things that has helped me as well. Okay. Keith B, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Keith B says, I started reparenting myself over a year ago. I even have pictures of myself as a kid underneath the kitchen table under the clear liner. It has been a game changer. Yeah. Because the process of reparenting is really like getting all the weeds, for those gardeners out there who are like me, getting all the weeds out of the garden. You know, I'm tired of looking at you. I'm tired of seeing you there. You don't belong there. Why are you invading the roses? Right. So it's like, it really is like cleaning your garden of weeds, isn't it? Excuse me, when you reparent yourself and then you get to a place where everything feels a little bit better, you know? Okay, we're going to get to that in this conversation. I just want to scan the chat box here. Bay Honey, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Bay Honey says, currently going through this, tried twice to break no contact with my mom, asking deeper questions, had me realize that she cannot take certain steps to heal due to not wanting to upset grandma. Yeah. So you know what I always tell my clients who are like you, Bay Honey? I say, you know what? Don't try to pull the other person into the healing process. Don't force them to come out of that. Don't wait on them to arrive to where you are. You do the running, right? Because remember what I said at the beginning, you can change the fabric of your family by changing yourself. You really are a model. You really are a model to the rest of your family. And if you live your life that way, I think this is the way I live my life. But if you live your life that way, other family members will fall in line. And sometimes they may continue to do the things that's unhealthy or dysfunctional or toxic. But one thing is for sure, they can rely on the fact that you are not going that way. And sometimes that's all they need to change, to shift, to grow, to move. You know what I mean? So you can change the fabric of your life by changing you can change the fabric of your family, by changing yourself first. Axe to Edge says cognitive defusion. Yes, cognitive defusion. It's the process of shifting your attention to what you're thinking about to how you're thinking, you know? MS says, you're describing my family. The one bro I let back in doesn't understand why I'm continuing no contact with everyone else. And for the first time in my life, I'm unconcerned with what he or anyone thinks. Yeah, I totally get that. I do. You hate to be that way, but sometimes if the poison is a family member and they keep doing the same thing over and over, or they are toxic and dysfunctional and can't change or don't want to change or can't see themselves, you really do sometimes have to say, you know what? I'm done talking. My behavior is going to do the talking because I'm going to come out of this chaos, you know? And that's how it has to be sometimes. Okay, let me keep rolling here, guys, and scrolling so I can make sure we end on a good time tonight. Gio Castillo, hello, welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Gio says, I already did this as a kid. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, absolutely. Some people do, right? Bossy Treathy 15 says, this thing affected my studies. Oh, I don't blame you. Don't blame you. Don't blame me at all. Billy Wiggins, hello and welcome. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Billy Wiggins says, my family is okay. It's strangers. I get crap from this thing called targeted individual is what I'm constantly dealing with. Yeah, I think we're talking about gang stalking, right? I'm not going to touch on that tonight because that's a whole different path. Here we go. Fairy Girl says it. Distorted thinking patterns could be at the core of that. So I'm not going to even talk about that right now. We'll just continue on in the conversation. Okay, give me 1 second, guys, as I go through this. Kim Matthew brings up religious abuse. That's also part of this dynamic. That can be very hurtful and leave some wounds behind. Tammy Nicely says, rumination is how I know it. Constantly thinking about something that's happened and you can't get out of your mind. Yeah, absolutely. That right there is the content of the mind, right? Yeah. That is the content of the mind right there. Betsy Sigler, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Says, I had to do that 17 years ago. I made the right decision. Yep. There you go. Ellie Wen, good to see you back, my friend. Okay. Lorfit, good to see you as well. Welcome back tonight. Okay. Just trying to get some more comments in before we get back into the content. Tanisha's Heart Garden says, what is your experience? What is your experience of rejection? Is that what you mean? And now you're stuck in the contents of your thoughts, and it almost feels out of your control. What is your experience with rejection? And now you're stuck in the contents of your thoughts, and it almost feels out of control. Tanisha, can you break that down for me? Or can you pose it a different way? It's a good question. It's in there. I just can't figure it right now. So if you rework that whole thing for me, I will be happy to answer that. I would, because you're onto something, right? Now you're stuck in the contents of your thoughts, and it's almost like you feel out of control, or it's almost out of control. Bring that back to me, Tanisha, and I will answer that question. Kate M says, net of being addicted to making sense. Good. Good. Oh, here you go. Tanisha's Heart Garden. She says, correction. What if you experience rejection and now you're stuck in the content of your thought? There we go. And it almost feels out of your control. Okay. Now we have a good question. What if you experience rejection and now you're stuck in the contents of your thoughts? That is where, again, you have to engage in cognitive defusion. You have to shift your thoughts. And that can be an automatic, wait a minute, I'm thinking about it again. Nope, time to go somewhere else with my mind, Or why am I thinking about when she said she didn't want to have anything to do with me? What else can I do? What else can I do at this time to shift my thoughts from the content to how I should think of this? How do I get out of being stuck in the content of my mind? Is by changing your focus, distraction, right? Looking at the facts of the situation. If you can see them, you may need to talk the situation out with somebody else. Another way to kind of come out of the content of your thoughts and of your mind is to ask yourself, what am I getting out of continuing to think about what happened, how it happened, what I said, what she said, what he did, what I did? What am I getting out of this? Right? And if you're trying to get validation that your moves were the right one, or you're just going over it in your mind out of anxiety because you want to make sure you didn't do anything wrong, that is just a slippery slope, right? Because you can just overthink and overthink and overthink. I have a client like that, and all he does is overthink, and it sinks him. And he thinks about the content of his thoughts, right? Well, she said this to me on April 3rd, and then he did this to me on May 1st, but last year at Christmas, and that can just go on and on and on for him. So we've been working on shifting from content to process. How should you be seeing this? What is a healthier way to look at all of this? When do you need to stop thinking about this? How much time? Some therapists even encourage their clients to schedule a time, right? How much time am I going to give my mind to engage in the contents of what happened? Right? Maybe it'll be 15 minutes. Maybe it'll be 20 minutes while I journal. And then I have to cut my thoughts off and do something else. You know, for some people, going to the gym is changing their thoughts and changing the content of their thoughts, right? Because they're exercising, they're getting fit, they're getting in shape, they're feeling better, they're feeling less down, feeling less anxious, right? And that can help shift your perspective as well. So we could literally have a whole topic tonight. We're not, but we could. But that was a great question. I'm going to start that question in the chat box. Tanisha, I hope that made sense and somehow answered your question. Okay, let's keep going, guys. I don't see anybody else that I want to say hello to. Kim Mappy. I know, right? Before I hit the go live button tonight, I was literally reciting it. I'm like, Agioli. No. Agioli. No, that's not it. I was going over it. Okay. So don't feel bad if it sounds like ravioli. Worthy again. Hello and welcome to the channel. So glad to have you. Worthy again. And thank you for being a member. I just saw that. Thank you so much. Worthy again says, I joined to tell you that I'm trying to escape my malignant narcissist abuser and no one believes me. Well, you know, this is not the focal point of this conversation tonight, but I will say that the only thing that I will say is when you are dealing with a malignant narcissist, it is not going to be easy for people to believe you, because a lot of society, maybe this is on topic, I don't know, you guys tell me, a lot of society has beat it into our head that nobody is inherently evil. Nobody has any kind of connection to a dark world. They don't have a dark mind. They don't have a dark soul. Everybody is human like you. And when that has been beat into your mind culturally, in a society, right, that really does feel empowered by encouraging people to see the world as a nice place, right, it kind of trips them up when you say, I'm dealing with this kind of personality, I'm dealing with this kind of mind. Here's the evil, dark thing that he or she did. Nobody's really going to digest that. Excuse me, because, well, maybe I should put it this way. Nobody's going to digest that. And somebody may digest some of it, right? Some people get it a little bit, some don't, right? Some people are not going to digest anything that you're talking about because they're not in the mindset of seeing that there is real evil and darkness. And some characters are just that, you know? So I'll leave it at that since we're not talking about narcissists, but don't feel alone. Don't feel alone in that at all. Again, society has a hard time believing that there is a dark, evil, problematic type of a character that just runs loose in the world. That's not the way we've been accultured. Can I say that? Or culturized? That's the word I'm looking for. Culturized. Caitlin McPhee, I think I said that correctly. Hello and welcome to the channel. Good to have you. She says, I just found your channel recently and it's really helping me to go through some family estrangement in my family right now. I listen to your videos at the gym and also during my commute, and thank you. Oh, that's so humbling. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so glad that you are listening like that and getting something from that. You know, I'm just not like blah, 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 blah in your ear. Good to have you and welcome to the channel. All right, we're going to go back to the content on this. Okay, guys, what are some of the common issues that you may experience that kind of keeps you from reparenting yourself? Because there are some of my clients and some people who come to me through consultations and they ask me, how do I reparent myself if I don't seem to be ready to do so? You know, and so I often tell them, here's the common issues. There's a lot of lack of motivation, right? And anhedonia. Why wouldn't you have lack of motivation and anhedonia when you've come from a toxic and dysfunctional family dynamic where you don't feel heard, you don't feel understood, you don't feel cared for, and you don't feel what Dr. Siegel calls feeling felt. That's an interesting concept. Let me put him in the chat box. He is Dr. Siegel. I had to think of his name. Dr. Siegel. I probably messed that up. It's called Feeling Felt. There you go. Feeling felt. And what that means is you feel like somebody feels what you're going through, right? And when you don't feel felt, and when you don't feel seen, like some people say, why would you have motivation in life? So lack of motivation and anhedonia. Anhedonia is a term that we use with people who are suffering from depression, and they're having a hard time feeling that same energy and stimulation and pleasure that they usually get out of certain things. Date nights no longer exciting because I'm so depressed. Hopping online and having a FaceTime conversation with my best friend or my mom or my sibling, no longer anything I enjoy. Anhedonia. So you may be experiencing that. Financial constraints. It's hard to reparent yourself when you can't get therapy. You can't buy the books that you need to learn and grow, which is why this YouTube channel is so awesome, and many other channels on YouTube like it, because it caters to people who cannot financially go to a therapist, go to a life coach, right? Go to the bookstore and buy a bunch of books on reparenting. So financial constraints can get in the way. Research also says lack of family support and lack of social support can also get in the way of reparenting. You don't feel like anybody around you is cheering for you, right? Because everybody is against you, kind of a mentality, and maybe experience. Maybe a lot of people really are against you. And so that can make it really hard. Time constraints, reparenting requires that you have a lot of time and patience with yourself, time and patience with the process, and some people just don't have that. There's also a term called psychological inflexibility. We talked about psychological flexibility earlier. This is psychological inflexibility. So there's this inability to, over time, kind of be, there's an inability to be flexible with expectations of yourself and others, with, belief systems, thought patterns. It's almost like the trauma and the dysfunction and the wounded inner child becomes really rigid, because that is a form of self-protection, So there's a lot of psychological inflexibility. There's also what we call, I'm trying to think of what the term would be if I broke it down a little bit. I'm going to say compensatory behaviors. And really it's behaviors that helps you compensate for a loss, right? And compensatory behaviors can be really poor coping skills. I talked to my grandmother the other day, and she told me I'm no longer welcomed in the family because I want to go no contact, and I want to have nothing to do with my mother and my father and my siblings. So my grandmother told me the other day that I am selfish. I am not considering the family. And then she asked me how I could walk away from my family. This is an example, right? What's a compensatory behavior in that kind of a situation? I'm going to write 2 long emails that could literally span 3 different pages, okay? And I'm going to explain and over-explain and over-explain and over-explain some more to kind of rid myself of feeling guilty. Compensatory behavior, it's a compensation, or it's an unhealthy series of coping skills, Over-explaining, that is also unhealthy. That's a negative coping skill. We also have something called attaching to a conceptualized self. Attaching to a conceptualized self. Okay, so here's what that means. I'm attaching to what my mind tells me that I am. It's a fixed, rigid view of yourself that may or may not be the truth, right? I'm not good enough. That is a fixed, rigid view of yourself. My mother and my father never loved me. I never got anywhere in my life because of them. I must not be lovable because they didn't love me. Those are rigid, fixed thoughts. And you start to, over time, conceptualize yourself in that image or in that way, and it becomes a part of you. Okay, so let's go to how to shift. And then we're going to go to the chat box and then we're going to wrap up. So, how to shift. Okay. Research suggests that there's one important thing we need to do. And I do this all the time, even now. One important thing that we need to do is when you feel lost in your thoughts, shift your position. When you feel lost in your thoughts, when you feel lost on the inside, shift your position. This could look like I'm constantly thinking about the abuse in my family, being harassed, being neglected, being unloved, feeling unlovable, being rejected. My mind is going through all of that. But what can I realistically shift in myself right now, in my world right now, so that I'm not stuck in the content of my mind? Well, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to set up a therapy session. I'm going to set up an appointment. I'm going to journal for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to watch a very emotionally stimulating and deep movie, right? I am going to jump on Miss Tamara's YouTube channel and watch and binge watch. You guys hear that? Binge watch. I'm just throwing some hints out there. Binge watch her channel until I feel like I fully understand what happened to me, right? I'm going to get some books from the bookstore, or I'm going to go to Google Scholar and look up some research articles and help my mind expand, So when you feel lost, reground yourself. And really, I just told a child this the other day, you're anchoring yourself. He's not really a child. He's 14, but he's a child to me. And so he says, I don't know why I feel so like unhinged. I just feel so impulsive and like nothing's grounding me. And I said, because you need to re-anchor yourself, right? You need something that's going to anchor you and make you feel like you have self-control. So when you feel lost, change your position. That's really good. I do it all the time. I come home from a whole day full of 16, 17 clients in one day, and they were all emotionally draining. Some were beautifully, designed for the day. Sometimes I walk away from my clients and I'm like, you know what? My heart feels good. Why? Because we laughed. I had a kiddo like that the other day. We laughed. He brought his treatment team in to see me. So I'm the trauma therapist on the team, and the trauma therapist in private practice on the team for this family. And then he also has other treatment providers. So the other treatment providers came into session with me, and he was happy. His adopted mom was happy. The treatment team was happy. I was happy. We came up with the idea of ending the session by playing Uno. And I walked away from that session. And I'm like, my heart feels good. I feel like we all had a bonding, healthy, good experience for this child. We're all like rooting for this child, So what I often do to kind of re-anchor myself is I go back over what was good in the day, what touched my soul and my heart in that day, So when you get stuck and lost, change your position. The other thing is pursue developmental and personal goals. This is another way to reparent yourself. Pursue developmental and personal goals. Developmental goals may be, okay, I'm in my mid-30s. And so what do I need to do? Well, I probably need to lose some weight. I'm going to start eating healthier. I'm going to start getting myself ready for that big 40. And I'm going to go to bed earlier. I am going to have some self-compassion, meaning I'm not going to judge myself harshly. I'm going to kind of help myself develop a healthier, more stable mentality by focusing on developmental goals, right? Where you are in your life, and setting goals and personal goals. For some people, my clients, sometimes my adult clients will come in. Their personal goal is to develop healthy coping skills. Their developmental goals is to lose weight, get healthier, right? And exercise more often. So that can be helpful as well. Change the narrative as much as you can. Change the narrative as much as you can. You come from a traumatic, toxic, dysfunctional family dynamic. That's okay. Now you're an adult, hopefully doing better. You now have full control over your life in some capacities, right? You don't really have to be bothered with dysfunctional, intimidating, unhealthy family members if you don't want to, and if they're not healthy for you, right? So you can use all of that as motivation to change the narrative. Yes, I may have come from that. But what's going to be my narrative now? How am I going to reparent myself in a way? How can I shift my focus? How can I shift my mentality? How can I shift my attitude to develop the life that I need to function now? So how can I change this story? For me, changing the intergenerational story in my family was to dedicate myself to higher education, to learn all I could learn, to be humble with people who know more than me so I can learn, right? To engage in self exploration. I did a lot of that growing up, or, being in higher education. There was a lot of introspection that was happening, holding dear and close my faith, exercising the little bit of muscles I have, and really not letting anything derail my road, you know, and that was powerful for me. So I was able to change the narrative, not only for me, but for my family. And so you can do that too. Have self-compassion, another way to reparent yourself, have self-compassion. You don't want to look at yourself in a judgmental way, right? Self-compassion says, it's okay, me. It's okay, me. Don't worry. That's self-compassion, Commit to your values and your morals. I never waver. I never shift from my morals and my values, because that is like an anchor. Once you shift your morals and your values in a way that makes it seem like you're wishy-washy, that's when all the trouble starts. So you can reparent yourself by holding really firm to your values and your morals. You want to learn to adapt and accommodate in your life, right? Adapting your life means really embracing psychological flexibility. You may have to rewatch this later to go back over what this means, but adapting means psychological flexibility. I can adapt in whatever situation that I am in, and I accommodate myself in many issues. I support myself. I'm the anchor in my world. A lot of people who kind of commit to adapting to things, and they believe in a God and they believe in faith, they say, God is my anchor, right? That's what it is for me. And a lot of people could probably relate to that. That's the anchor. That's the way that you adapt, is by relying on faith. But you can also adapt in different ways, holding firm to your morals, your values, and just being open to learning and growing and developing, right? Staying present, so mindfulness. A lot of people think that you have to hum and sing and close your eyes and meditate. That's not really what mindfulness is. Being mindful could just be, I'm going to be quiet right now. I'm going to be quiet for the next 10 minutes because I need my whole mind and my body to just stop. Some people go to a playground and sit and breathe and think, process. I used to see, when I was growing up, I used to see adults. My mom would take us to the park every Friday, and it was more like a country or rural kind of a park, so there was a lot of greenery and bushes and trees and arborvitaes, and the list goes on. And I remember as a child looking at this old man, and he parked on one side of the park. He got out to walk, and he just paced back and forth. And I remember being a kid thinking, I wonder what he's thinking, And really, when I look back at that as a grown-up, as an adult now, with a lot of pressures on my life and a lot of demand, and now I understand how you could need that time, I think he was really meditating, and he was being mindful in that moment. I think he was a wise old man. Observe situations, but you don't have to engage. Reparent yourself by just kind of standing on the outskirts of things that are problematic. You don't have to get involved in your brother's chaotic relationships. You don't have to really get wrapped up in that dysfunctional parent's attitude and mental health and personality problems. You really can step out of that once you learn to, because sometimes you have to learn to, but you can step out of that and look and observe, but you don't have to get sucked in by it, right? The other thing is, become aware of your subjective experience. I think sometimes your subjective experience makes a lot of sense. You're seeing the world through your eyes, it's good to be aware of that. that I am now in a position of processing what that person is doing. I'm now processing how I feel in this moment, right? Kind of taking in and digesting your subjective experience, what's happening to you. It's another form of being mindful, you know? The other thing is, I'm trying to think, I'll throw this one in here as well, because this is another reparenting mindset, to embrace individuation. Embrace individuation. Remember, I said yesterday, individuation is the process by which you were close to your family. And as you grow, you kind of detach from your family and you develop your own morals, your own values, and your own way of thinking, right? So embrace individuation. That may be as simple as, I have not engaged with my family for the last few months, and I feel great. I feel wonderful, right? So embrace that and look at it for yourself and ask yourself, well, if I feel great because I haven't talked to my family in 6 months, maybe I need to build some kind of space between us a little bit. I stopped dating and my life got better. That's a clue that maybe dating is taking its toll on you, right? So embrace the process of individuation, pulling away from your family and developing your own healthy lifestyle, your own healthy mindset, rebuilding the muscles of your heart, right? Building courage. That is also something, that's a process of individuation. You have to have courage to kind of detach from the pack, right? Rearrange the people in your life. I did it many years ago. You belong there. I'm going to put you over there. I'm going to now put you here. You no longer are here, so I'm going to put you over there. So rearrange people in your life. It's okay to say, I once was 100% team Kimmy, and now I'm not. Now I'm about 50%. And so because of that, I'm going to put you over here. And I'm going to put myself in this box. And I'm going to stay here because it's comfortable. And I'm going to move you over here, Jim. And I'm going to move you over here, Lily, right? Rearrange people in your life. And you can. You don't have to be stuck to them, right? I like to rearrange family members. I'm only going to talk to you every so many weeks because you really do stress me out. It's a boundary. Not being rude, it's a boundary. Stand firm on what you know now. A lot of us live in the past, right? So when you're reparenting yourself, in a sense, you're saying, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to grow, right? I'm ready to shift. In order to do that, you have to stand firm on what you know now, not on what happened to you, but rather on what you know now. And it sounds to me, by looking at the chat box, you guys know a lot and you know where you flourish the most, right? So stand on that. And the 15th thing that I have for you is, don't get sidetracked. Was that all 15, guys? I feel like it was like 9 or 8, but don't get sidetracked. The only way that I could run the marathon in my career, in my personal life, and come out on the other end, I still have problems as a human, but it's not the problem of being stuck. Does that make sense, guys? We're going to all have problems, but it doesn't have to be the problem of being stuck. The only way that I was able to run the marathon to this part and piece of my life now, which I feel like I'm way on the other side of my life in a decent place, in a good place, the only way to do that is to not get sidetracked. Don't get sidetracked by family fights and arguments, by people who really don't mean you any good, right? By belief systems and attitudes that keep you stuck. Don't get sidetracked. By dating that person over there and over there and over there and over there and still failing. Don't get sidetracked, by getting stuck in your mind and kind of feeling like the victim all the time. Don't get sidetracked, by overthinking where you are in your reparenting process and in your life. Don't get sidetracked. That throws you off course, right? that overthinking. So these are the concepts, guys, of reparenting yourself, how to deal with that inner child, how to gain psychological flexibility, how to change the fabric of your family. We could go on and on and on. And there's way more to this topic. Okay, guys, I literally touched the surface here. Let me know what you think of all these concepts. There are steps here that I'm leaving with you. And to be very honest, these are steps that have worked for me. They've worked for me. And I am my best research subject because not only am I teaching my clients these ways of thinking, and not only does research back this up, but it really is a very structured way to engage in your life, and you can add these things in your world a little bit at a time in different ways and in different times in your world. You don't have to do all of this. You can, change your position in one part of your life. You can hold firm to your values and your morals in another area of your life, right? You can, show yourself self-compassion next Saturday, so you can use these in a variety of ways, but it's a lot, isn't it, guys? Hope this was helpful to you guys. Hopefully you got what you needed from me tonight in terms of reparenting yourself. I'm going to post in the comments section once we sign off the links to my previous videos and live chats on reparenting yourself, because I'm sure there's more ideas in there that I talked about that I didn't talk about tonight. All right, guys. Okay. All right, let me go back to the chat box, guys. I'm going to engage you a little bit, and then we're going to wrap up. Cornbread. Every time I see that name, I get excited. Cornbread. I don't know why. I just do. Cornbread, good to see you. Cornbread says, we can acknowledge that children are victimized if they observe their mother being abused, domestic violence, absolutely, or any sort of abuse. I agree with that. But if the child is abused, society minimizes this. This switch is a part of the trauma supply. Yeah. I'm like trying to pull from my knowledge of child abuse. The world of child abuse reporting, being mandated reporters, having the responsibility of identifying child abuse, identifying child neglect, all of that has transformed over time, but the system has always been really difficult. There was a time in our history where child abuse wasn't even an idea. It wasn't even on the radar. You guys know that, hopefully. There was no such thing as child abuse. And little by little, over time, the American system realized that, wait a minute, we need to be focusing on these different occurrences that happens in the lives of children. And we need to set up a system, which happened many years after child abuse was even thought about. So child abuse was thought about, but the system that we have now, CPS, Child Protective Services, that wasn't implemented until years later. So we've had a system that has been very slow to react when it comes to child abuse. So you're not saying anything that's far-fetched. We continue to have a very difficult system. I'm going to put it that way. So I'm validating what you're saying. I agree with that. I agree. Okay. It is very sad. Kim Matthews says it's very sad. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. MS says, when I was a kid, I'd look at other people's parents and wish they were my parents. I did this multiple times. Oh, that's so sad. MS, I'm so sorry to hear that. I have so many kids. They used to see me for therapy. And this is when I worked in a trauma unit in a residential treatment facility. And I was seeing a lot of kids that came from homes where there's tons of child abuse and neglect. And some of those kids would say that to me. MS. They would say things like, Miss Tamara, I wish you were my mom, and I usually, and I still get that every now and then, but at that time, the trauma was so deep for these kids, which I'm sure it is for you. The deep part of yourself is so impacted by the trauma that you just look at somebody else that looks stable and well put together and you say, I wish you were my mom. I wish you were my dad, right? Because it's kind of for just a moment filling that void, right? Yeah, I totally get you on that one. I do. Okay. Laura Fitz says you can also suffer from repetition compulsion, keep attracting similar people and patterns. I'm learning to release what is the familiar. Yeah, I like that. That should be a new diagnosis, Laura Fitz. Repetition compulsion. There we go. I'm going to write it down, send it to the American Psychiatric Association, who developed the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Okay. And I'm going to say Laura Fitz and Tamara Hill came up with a new diagnosis, and it is called repetition compulsion. It sounds clinical, Laura Fitz. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to lighten the mood, guys. But, look, if you look in the DSM, I'm not moving my DSM. It's underneath everything over there. That's how much I really like the DSM. But that blue book that I showed you guys a couple of weeks ago in a live chat, that thing, you should see all the interesting terms that ends up on the table, of the group that decides whether or not a diagnosis should actually be clinical or not, So repetition compulsion, it doesn't sound far-fetched, Laura Fitz. Doesn't. It really doesn't. If you ever think of becoming rich because of that diagnosis, let me know, because I will back you up. Very Happy Monday says the tough topics are most healing. Yes, they are. They can be. They can be. Bossy Truthy 15 says, one thing I cannot accept is that I have been bullied by my family like this. I understand that. Yes. Because again, society has kind of beat into us in a variety of ways, and also by culture, that you are not abused by your family. You are not harassed by your family. You are not stalked by your family. You are not bullied by your family. And those are such incorrect theories. If you have a dysfunctional, toxic family that is unhealthy, that has been built on the foundation of trauma, it is possible that you're experiencing all of those things, That's awesome, A and B. Good to hear that. Good to hear that. Okay. Hanifa El Amin, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Tammy Nicely says, you are a breath of American U.S. oxygen, Tammy, for want of better words. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. Thank you. So sweet. I appreciate you. Bay Honey says, you're absolutely correct. Yep. That's good to know. Force of Living, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Living your spiritual path in the world. I love that. Hello and welcome. Good to see you. Living your spiritual path in the world says reparenting yourself does take years, but it is worth it. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I agree. Monique Easton, hello and welcome. Good to see you. I'm going to leave your comment up on the channel here so that people can read it and see it as I scroll. Monique Easton goes on to say, you have to heal yourself and pray that everyone else will follow your lead. Absolutely. Very much agree. I agree. My friend Shamita, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. We're on our way to wrap up here. Okay, just looking for people I didn't get. I hope that's correct. Hello and welcome. Good to see you. Says, still living with trauma. Youngest of 10 children. Mother died. I was 17 months at 63, still trying to shift my thoughts. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. That's so hard. I have a beloved client. She's wonderful. And I just want her to make it with her husband and her 2 kids. And I want her to do really well. Well, she lost her parents when she was in adolescence, and she lost her mom. And I think that was the triggering point of the rest of her life to deal with depression, anxiety, and trauma. So I see that pain up close, And I totally get that. It's such a rough journey, right? And it can take you many years before you feel strong again, or you ever feel strong, right? Some people can grow and develop and they feel the strongest that they have ever felt, right? Okay, let me keep moving here because we're going to wrap up. Barbara Cludio, hello and welcome. Good to see you. She asked me a good question. How do you know someone is genuinely sorry? Well, in a nutshell, you really don't know. That's where trust comes in. That's where intuition comes in. That's where context comes in, right? You really have to look at the context of the situation. You also have to go by your intuition, whether or not you believe that they're sorry or you feel that they're sorry, right? You can also look at things like body language and how they're saying sorry, or what was the motivation for apologizing or taking responsibility for something. So just to make that short and sweet, that's kind of the basics of that. Okay. Bear with me, guys, as I keep scrolling here for a second. Juby Joe. Ooh, what did I do? There we go. Juby Joe says, the sooner you reparent yourself, the sooner you move on. I agree. The good glow. What word? What word did I say? Was it cognitive defusion? Was it psychological inflexibility? Was it compensatory? I don't really know. Bring that. Somebody help, because I have no idea. I'm so far back in the comments. It's not funny. Kate M says experiencing anhedonia. Yeah. We can all experience it at some point in our lives. What can help us get out of that rut of anhedonia is trying to either develop a new passion or find a healthy way to how do I want to say this? To kind of re-trigger, I'll put it that way, the motivation and stimulation within yourself to where it used to be. Does that make sense, guys? So re-trigger that excitement somehow, or develop a new passion. That can also be helpful. Mom Tude, good to see you tonight. We're going to wrap up here because I'm way over time. I can work things out. Breezy, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Monique Easton, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you. Monique says, this is spiritual warfare at its core. We did talk about that at some point, didn't we, guys? These are generational curses that have to be broken. We have to heal. We have to be healed and delivered. I very much agree with that. I'm gonna heart that comment in the chat box. I very much agree with that. It really is a process of rebuilding yourself, your mind, your heart, your soul, your spiritual side, and even your body, right? Working out is my way of rebuilding my body so I can be strong enough and fit enough to do what I need to do. But then that also translates into a healthier mindset. It also translates into courage, right? And emotional strength. And so you almost have to be, as Monique is saying, you have to be healed by embracing those various things, including spiritual things in your world. I agree with that. Okay, still skimming, guys. I don't want to. Oh, okay. Axe to Edge. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit more, guys, and then we're going to go. Axe to Edge says, love you dropping the book recommendations, but I can't find Feeling Felt. Feeling Felt would not be a book recommendation. I will try to find the article of Dr. Siegel where he spoke about feeling felt. Okay. And I'll post that article so that you guys can read it. It's a lot of academic talking. So let me know, if you want me to kind of pick and pull apart what he's saying. Okay. So I'll post that article. Okay. Candy D, hello and welcome. Good to see you. So, and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Candy D says, blessings, everyone. Thank you for all of your informations. All your videos are outstanding and helpful. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. So glad they're helpful. Thank you. There you go, fairy girls with the dab. Wait, where'd you go? I got to put you up here to lighten our mood. I love it. And she always does 2 dabs. I love it. I love it. Jessica J is taking notes. Yes, you're welcome. So glad it's helpful. Guys, let's pause here, okay? For those of you I didn't get to in the chat box, forgive me. Know that I hear you and I see you and I love you. I hope this was helpful. I truly hope that this made some sense. It was practical, and you can say, you know what? I'm going to show myself some self-compassion tonight. I'm going to go make me a big, nice bowl of ice cream. I'm going to have chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. Then I'm going to add some fudge to it and maybe a few strawberries. I'm going to get on my couch and I'm going to watch something funny, spiritual, pleasing. And that is going to be my Saturday night. That is self-compassion, right? I hope you can take something that we talked about tonight and literally put it into action. So love you guys so much. Thank you for helping this channel and for helping me. And let me know if you have any topic ideas that you want me to embrace more of, because tonight was a highly requested live chat. So on the whim, I just thought, you know what? I should just talk about this. So again, guys, hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. I may post a video on Monday. We'll see how I'm feeling. But in the meantime, have a wonderful Saturday. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.